into this. I love this topic. I love teaching this topic. I love doing this process. How many of y'all have done this with me? Tammy's done it. I think Maggie Graham has done it. Heather's done it before. So Amanda, this first time for you. This is cool. And I've got some people I'm sure that are going to pop in here late. But this is a super powerful process. I try to do it at least every 6 months for myself because it is it's just a good powerful process just to figure out where you're at, because in some cases you may do this at one time of the year and then you might go back and do it later in the year, and a lot of your motivations may change depending on the season that you're in. Also, I think you learn things about yourself every time you do this. So on that note, those of you guys that have already done this, I'm going to challenge you not to try to trick your mind into thinking you already know the answers. You know what I'm talking about? Because you kind of start on that first round of motivators and you're like, oh, I know what these are. And you kind of in your mind, you know what ended up being number one for you last time. So you kind of work around those. Try to look at it with a fresh set of eyes, as if you're seeing it for the first time, because it's you might be surprised to see what some things have changed. All right. So I want to make sure you know that as we dive into this. All right. Good morning, Jackie. Thanks for coming in. We are going to get right to it. So you guys, I put in the Facebook group, I put in the messenger group, I put in the chat of this thing. There is a document for you to print out. Hopefully you guys have been able to get this. If you have not gotten it, you can go to bit.ly/core motivation doc. It will make your life a whole lot easier to go through this Zoom call if you have that in front of you. If you do not have that in front of you, this is going to be challenging. So I challenge you to get that in front of you. This is, Jackie, good morning. Do you have a question, or are you just waving at me?
Waving.
Just waving. Good morning to you. What was I going to say? I was going to say, I told you, I don't know, a week or two ago in preparation for this masterclass that this process really does require your undivided attention because it is very thought-provoking. So if possible, cut off the distractions, Tammy.
Excuse me, Joanne's trying to get in. Can you shoot me your Zoom number right now? I can't access it and the chat at the same time.
Yep.
950.
950. Hang on a minute.
583 9951.
5591. Yep.
Oh my gosh, I've memorized it.
Yeah, I should have memorized it. I use that number more than my own phone number. You would think I would have memorized it by now.
I save it in my contacts as a phone number. It's perfect.
Yeah, it is. Put it under Justin, because that's the number for everything. That's what we're always in here with. Keith, good morning to you. Kat, good morning to you. So undivided attention. Also, I want to tell you this. Don't feel bad if you can't get 100% through this process in this class and you have to visit it later or think about it more throughout the day. That's totally fine. My mission in this session this morning is to get you moving into the process and just understanding what you need to do so that you can work through it. When we did this for the first time ever in Nashville last year, we spent 2.5 hours on this as a group of, I think, 12 of us. And by the 2.5 hours, I had at least half the group that wasn't done. And I'm like, guys, we have to move on. Like, you can go back to your hotel room and work on this. We can't sit and work on this all day. But also along with those lines, I do absolutely want to answer questions as we go through this today, because this is a very powerful process, and I really want you to make sure you understand what you're doing with it. So if you get stuck on anything, I am watching the chat. So if you have questions, you can throw those in the chat. I am also watching all of your screens. So if you got a question, you can throw your hand up and I'll absolutely answer a question, because if you have a question, there's probably very likely someone else in the room has the same question. So if you get stuck on anything, if you need me to repeat anything, if you feel like you're completely lost, let me know. And I'm going to try to keep everybody on track with this as much as possible. All right. So we're going to dive right straight up into it. I've spent 5 minutes chatting as a buffer to give all those late arrivals time to get in here. Now they're just going to be behind. All right. So first page is a list of identifying negative impactors. And what we're going to do on this first page is you're going to go through, and I want you to identify, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. We are doing positive values. I'm sorry. First page, number 1. Is identification of positive values. So a couple things that I want you to understand about this before you start going through and circling some of these. First of all, do not confuse these positive values with core values. All right, there's a difference there. So what I'm looking for is I want you to just look at these words, and I want you to look at some of the things that come off this page and just ask yourself, what fuels you, what motivates you, what inspires you. In some cases, those things can be aligned with things that are just who you are at your core. So for example, one of the things on here that's listed on the first column, fifth one down, is integrity and character. Integrity and character is a core value for me. That's a given. That doesn't, integrity and character does not motivate me. That's a core value for me. So some people might see that and be like, well, absolutely, I want to be a person of integrity and character. Well, that might mean that that's a core value for you. That may not necessarily mean that it's a motivator for you. Being a man of integrity and character doesn't necessarily motivate me. That's just who I am at my core. For some people, though, demonstrating their integrity and making sure everyone knows that they're a person of integrity and character is a motivating factor and can be a demotivator if anybody ever challenges their integrity or character. I don't ever have anybody challenge my integrity or character, so I don't. Does that make sense? I want you to see the difference there. There's another thing too in here, like for example, relationships. Relationships are super important to me. And obviously I run a business of relationships, but relationships for me aren't necessarily a motivator for me. So, and excellence is not, I talk about having a spirit of excellence. Excellence is a given for me. That's something that's one of my core values, but excellence isn't necessarily a motivator. I'm not necessarily motivated by being excellent. That's just who I am. It's who I decide to be. Sometimes I'm demotivated by being excellent because that's a commitment to my craft. And sometimes I'm just not always in the mood to have to push that one extra mile, but it's a core value for me. So I set that. So what I'm really looking for you is, as you look through these things, I'm looking for the things that really fuel you, that really get you moving, the things that make you want to take steps forward. All right. So I want you to go through and I want you just to pick things off this list, and I want you to identify 10 positive values. And I'm going to do this with you as we go, so I can kind of take the time that's necessary, and I'll share some of mine with you so you can kind of see the things that I'm picking and why. But I want you to go through and you can go ahead and just start right into it. Just start circling some of the things that stand out to you. And I'm going to give us just a few minutes until we can get all through this segment. All right. So 10 things, and there's no particular order. So it does not matter. You don't have to list your number one first. We're not ranking these right now. We're just basically trying to identify 10 things. So also another note as you're doing it. One of the questions that I get sometimes is faith. Justin, I don't see anything on here about faith. I leave faith out intentionally because faith is a given for most people. And so I want to separate that. I want to separate that because faith for all of us is a tremendous motivator, I believe. So I don't want that to be confused. So faith, anything faith related is left out intentionally. Also, you'll find as you go through this list that there are some things that are similar. So try not to select things that are similar. So for example, financial stability and prosperity are similar. If you choose one of those, try not to choose the other, because it can be the same thing. For me, and one of my core motivators is prosperity. Prosperity for me, that I see that differently in my mind, that I see financial stability, because financial stability for me, the way I picture that in my mind is having enough just to make it. And I'm not about just making it. I'm about thriving. So prosperity for me is more important. Another one is, on the second column, you'll see choices and options, and then you'll see flexibility. That can be kind of the same thing depending on how you look at it. You might see success and achievement. Those can be very, very similar. So if you choose one of those things, try not to choose the opposite or the thing that's similar. I don't want you to select things that are really mean the same thing to you. Jacqueline says, are goals a positive motivator? They can be. Like in the very top right column, Jackie, you'll see short-term goals. Short-term goals can be a motivator for people. Sometimes having short-term goals is something that fuels them, and if they don't have a vision for any short-term goals in front of them, that can be a demotivator. Amanda says, what if they mean different things to you? If they mean different things to you, totally cool. That's totally fine. Just want to make sure that you don't select one thing and then you're like, well, I like that one too. If it means the same thing to you, don't pick both of them. All right. Great question, Amanda. I see choices and flexibility as different. I kind of do too. I just want to make sure everybody just sees that. So for me, I've got creativity because I love being creative. I have to have things that I'm being creative with. Prosperity is one of mine. Influence is one of mine. Influence and making a difference are similar. But for me, influence is having the ability to impact and influence people in a positive way. Making a difference can be viewed differently. You know, making a difference might just be doing meaningful things in the community or meaningful things in your family. But for me, I'm more motivated by having an influence and having an impact on people. Excitement is one of my motivators. Excitement and fun can be similar, but fun for me doesn't capture who I am. I'm not about just having things that are kind of fun. I want to have excitement. So excitement is important to me. Success is one of mine. Dependability is one of mine. Seeing others win, freedom, and leadership. Those are my top 10. Is anybody done yet? I'm curious. Not yet. One more. Let me know if you have questions as you go through it. And Joanne, good morning, girl. I'm glad you made it in. Tammy, are you looking for something or are you sorting through yours?
I had something pop up on my screen, but there's no way to get rid of it. And when I looked at you, it's over your face, but when I looked at you, it disappeared. So.
Oh, good. There we go. Nobody wants somebody covering up Justin's face when he's trying to do a masterclass. Right. And the face that Amanda has is usually where I get at about number 8. It's like, what do I want those last two to be? It's those last two are tricky, and try not to overthink it. I think the hardest thing for me usually is trying to make sure am I choosing a core value or am I choosing a motivator? Are you done, Amanda? You want to share them? Do you mind sharing them?
Sure. I'm pretty sure these are motivators rather than core values.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
I'll tell you if I question them.
Okay, so I've got fun,
okay,
learning, prosperity. Choices or options. To me, that means like I can make choices and do whatever I want. Yep. In the sense of I have the choices. It's not restricted. Flexibility, to me, flexibility means like I can change if I need to, right? Like I can pivot, I can adjust my schedule on a weekly basis if necessary, yep, due to family stuff, all that. Success, vision and future plans. I love big picture.
Yep.
Healthy living, seeing others win. I love that. And then leadership.
Those are good. I think those are all great. I don't see anything in there that I think is off. I think that's a great list. Anybody else done? Heather, are you done? You're done? You want to share yours? Do you mind?
Sure. Bless you.
Oh, bless you. Good job going in the arm. Like that was like textbook.
Hold on, buddy. So I have prosperity, peace and ease, flexibility, clarity, personal growth, success, friends and togetherness, serving, freedom, and leadership.
Yep. A great list. Excellent list. Tammy, you done?
Yes. Mine is creativity, integrity, character. Because I know that you said that was your core, one of your core motivations, but that is absolutely a positive motivator for me.
Yep. Yep. That is for some people. Yep.
Respect, peace and ease, making a difference, personal growth, accountability, serving, adventure.
Yep.
For sure. And seeing others win.
Great list. Another thing I forgot to tell you guys too that I want you to know is at the bottom of this list, you'll see that there's some blanks down here. So I try to cover everything that are motivators that I can think of for people, but there might be some things that are motivating to you that are not on this list. And if that's the case, you can write those down in those blanks below and you can choose those. So if there's anything in your life that you think is one of your top 10 motivators that's not necessarily on this list, write it down below, and that can be one of your 10. All right. I'm going to do one more. Anybody else want to share their 10? Anybody else done? Keith, go, buddy. Absolutely, Joanne. I see Joanne asked the question, would purpose be a motivator? Absolutely. Absolutely would be a motivator. Yep.
Okay, so being I came in, Glenda had this up, I came in a little behind when you started. It was to choose 10 of those, is that correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so went with creativity, financial stability, making a difference, legacy, generosity, giving, healthy living, routine because I need it.
Yep, routine, yep.
Fun, seeing others win, and peace and ease.
I think that's a spectacular list. The only question I'm going to ask you about routine is, just because it's for everybody, just because you see something on this list that you know you need doesn't necessarily mean that it motivates you. So routine, you might see routine. I pick routine because I need it. Just because you need routine doesn't mean that you like routine or enjoy routine or feel motivated by routine. So yeah, see that? So you need to pick a different one. So if Glenda gets up in the morning and wakes you up at 6 a.m. and said, this is your plan for the day, and you're going to do this for the next 90 days straight without fail, are you like, yeah, I love a schedule? You're going to be like, that's going to suck the life right out of you, right? So scratch routine. So you might instead need to say flexibility. Like, in all seriousness, but this is why this is such an important conversation, because if you have, say, a Glenda in your life that maybe she is motivated by routine and she loves routine and she knows that routine is good for you, and so she's trying to help you by really giving you a strong, solid routine to help you be more efficient, but you're motivated by flexibility, then you got to sort that out together. Because if all you get is routine and structure all the time and you don't have the chance to be flexible, that will demotivate you and you won't get anything done.
Okay.
So just because routine is a good thing to have in a lot of cases doesn't mean that it's necessarily all you can have. You've got to, you can have some routine, but you also have to have some times in your day or in your week where you have some flexibility and some options, because that is a motivator for you. Does that make sense?
I'm going to change it to freedom. How's that?
Freedom's good. Freedom's on my list. Freedom's important. Peace and ease is great. Thank you, Joanne. I see. What about something like quantum leaps? Yeah, whatever it is, for however you see, whoever. Absolutely, Joanne. If quantum leaps, like taking large leaps forward and making huge gains, if that's a motivator for you, absolutely. All right, we're gonna move on to the second page of this thing, guys, because I want to keep us moving this morning. So you should have 10 things. All right, now the next page we're gonna go to is going to be, I'm gonna make sure I'm on the right page. Page 2 is going to look like this. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the 10 things that you've selected and you're going to list those 10 things. It doesn't matter what order. You're going to list those 10 things down the side, and you're going to list in the same order over here. So whatever order you list them here down the side column, list them here in that order, and then list them in the exact same order here across the top. So go ahead and do that. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, question. If you got questions, ask them. So again, the 10 things from this list, whatever 10 you selected, you're just going to list all 10 of them in this side column. And then once you list them all in that side column, you're going to list them in the same order across this top column. Same order. Same order is important, okay? And if you got questions, ask me, okay? All right, so I have created.
No question.
Yes, go ahead.
Just verifying, the initial order doesn't necessarily matter.
Doesn't matter. Just make sure that you get all 10 of them on there. Doesn't matter what order they're in.
Okay.
Creativity. Prosperity. Influence. Success. Okay. Everybody good there? Wait till everybody's done. So this is what that should look like. Something similar. 10 things here, same order, 10 things there. Let me know when you're all good and we'll move on. Tammy's good. Heather's good. Keith.
I
Good morning.
have
Go ahead, Tammy.
something, it's on the subject, but I mentioned this last time because I printed this out for my team last year, but I don't know if you can see, but all around yours did not print. I asked you last time if there's any way you could shrink
Weird.
that just a bit so that it would print. Your printer goes all the way to the edge, but mine doesn't.
Yeah, that's weird. Mine prints the whole thing. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be the margins.
Yeah.
I'll make
And
a note of that.
this is just my preference, but this was a lot of wasted ink for me.
Okay. Yeah. That's Justin's desire to be creative.
I know. And it's beautiful in red, but I didn't print it in red.
Yeah, I printed mine black and white too. All right. Everybody good? Everybody ready for this piece? Okay. So this is the tricky part. I'm going to explain this as simply as I can. All right. So we're going to start on the first column. We're basically going to work down this side column. All right. So what we're going to do is with every single one of these top ones. So I'm going to start with creativity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to compare creativity against every single thing here on the top. And I'm going to ask myself, is this more important than that? Or is that more important than this? So for example, so if I ask myself, there's a black box because I can't compare creativity versus creativity. So creativity, there's a black box because it's the same thing. So creativity versus prosperity, which one's more important? If creativity to me is more important than prosperity, I'm going to put a check mark. If it's not more important than prosperity, I'm going to put an X. So for me, prosperity is more important, so I'm going to put an X. Is creativity more important than influence? No, so I'm going to put an X. Is creativity more important than excitement? Yeah, I'm going to put a check mark on that one. Is creativity more important than success? No. Is creativity more important than dependability? No. Is creativity more important than seeing others win? No. Is it more important than freedom? No. Is it more important than leadership?
You can have more than one check across that, right?
You can, yes. So basically I'm just going through just like this, and I'm just working on the creativity line. For me, I'm just comparing creativity versus everything I have on this list, and I'm just asking myself, is creativity more important than that or less than important than that? If it's not more important, I put an X. If it is more important than that, I put a check mark. So let's just do that first line. Try to get that first line done. Tell me when you're done. And some of these you might find hard.
Hey, Justin,
Yes, Maggie?
remind me, is it an X for it is more important?
No, if creativity or your number one, if it is more than important, it's a check mark. If it's not more important, it's an X.
Thank you. Check an X. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. Okay. It's tricky. This is tricky. Now what gets really tricky is when you start working down through. And so, like, for example, creativity, when I compared creativity versus leadership, that was a tough one for me. I'm like, is creativity for me more important than leadership? And I really have to think about that. But when I think about what fuels me, to me, creativity to me is more important than leadership, because I'm a creative person. And really what you ask yourself, if you're struggling when you're comparing one, if I'm saying, all right, if I only had two things in my world, creativity and leadership, and one had to go away, which one, what do I need in my life most? For me, it's creativity. I have to have something creative. If you take creativity out of my life, that's really rough. So sorting out those balances can be tricky. But then later down the road, on one of my last lines, that I'm going to be comparing leadership against everything. So at some point in time later down through this process, I'm going to ask myself, is leadership more important than creativity? So you have to make sure you answer the same there than you did the first time. So you kind of are answering each one twice as you go through this, if this makes sense. So if you get on some of those ones that you're stuck on, make sure that you give yourself the same answer. Okay. So go ahead and continue down through this. If anybody's stuck or has questions, let me know, but just keep moving down the line. So your top line should be done. Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, so this is where I'm getting kind of stuck, is because I see there's a couple that are like causes, meaning like if this one is fulfilled.
Give me an example.
Like for me at least, I feel like with prosperity, almost every single other one's going to fall into place. Because
you can't look at it that way. I mean, you kind of can, I guess. You can say, I mean, that might say that for you, prosperity is a tremendous motivator because you know the impact that it'll have. So
Yeah.
what are you comparing prosperity against that you're not sure?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at like things like peace and ease and choices and options and flexibility and even things like healthy living.
Okay, so just some of those. So all right, so if you said, Justin, prosperity is super important to you, it'd be like, all right, well, I can help you be prosperous, Amanda, but I'm going to take away all the flexibility and all the options you have. You have to do exactly this, but if you do that, you'll prosper. Would you rather have the prosperity, or would you be like, I got to have that flexibility, and then the prosperity is not as important to me as the flexibility and the options are, because I don't want to be prosperous if I don't have freedom and options in my life. Does that make sense?
Right. And maybe I'm going way too crazy with this. Once I get to the level of prosperity that I want to get to, do I get the freedom and the flexibility back? In which case I'm willing to give it up for a season to get what I want.
But the thing, in a lot of cases, like this is a great conversation. One of the things that, one of the big decisions that I had to make early on when I started my business was my family is a network marketing family. And I started heavy in network marketing, and I had a lot of potential to grow up in network marketing, and I had the options, I had the connections, and I could really grow up in a network marketing business and be prosperous really, really fast. But what I did not like is, as I achieved each rank in the company, the expectations that went along with those ranks. And basically I was going to be going back to working for someone, and they were going to be telling me where I had to be and when I had to be and what I had to do and what conventions I had to go to. And I'm like, I'm not working for you. I love the idea of what that company can give me as far as prosperity and easy income, but I want to be able to do my own thing and create for myself. So I chose freedom over initial prosperity. So prosperity does not always mean freedom and flexibility. In some cases, prosperity can mean more demands, more, so it depends on the prosperity, I guess. So that's where you have to decide for yourself just which one is more important to you. Like for me, my number one is freedom across the board. And I have prosperity on here, but when I have to bounce, like prosperity is on my second. So I have to ask myself, which to me is more important, prosperity or freedom? Freedom wins. Because if you take away my freedom, that's a demotivator for me, and I wrestle with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great question.
Okay. Yeah. I think
it's not going to necessarily make it easier for you to choose, but I just want you to understand what you're choosing.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm realizing, because my mind keeps wanting to go at it like goal setting, right? And with goal setting, you go with what one is going to knock out the most and go after that.
Right. And again, this is not,
That's not what we're doing.
this is not like you're not choosing. Oh, we all want to be prosperous, obviously,
Right.
but we're not choosing our life plan right now. We're choosing what motivates you day in, day out. For me, freedom motivates me. If I am free to do what I need to do when I need to do it, I love it. But as soon as freedom starts going away, it shuts me down. I have got to have freedom. So there's nothing on this list that's more important to me than freedom. So that's just how I'm wired. So
Okay.
again, it's not easy, but that's the thought process around it. Anybody else got a question or want to chime in? Heather?
I see where Amanda's coming from, because I have to compare prosperity to clarity. And I know without clarity, prosperity will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that if I don't have clarity, none of it I don't think will happen, because that's my motivator. I need to be clear in my steps in order for me to move.
This is one thing
I feel like
this is one thing that's interesting. One thing that's interesting, and this will probably happen with a lot of you. It happens to just about everybody on the first time they do this. You'll choose things that you believe are in your top 10, but then as you work through this comparison chart, you'll find that some of these are not actually a motivator to you. In a lot of cases, prosperity may be at the bottom of the list, because I think automatically people go to, oh yeah, financial stability and prosperity, absolutely. That's something that motivates me. But you might actually find that that's not actually a motivator. It might be a desire of your heart, but it may not necessarily be a motivator. There may be other things that are actually your motivators. So, you kind of got to work through that to find that. So you want to make sure that you're thinking, this is not just, well, I really want to be prosperous. Okay, but what's going to motivate you today to be prosperous, and what's going to demotivate you? So in your case, it's having clarity. If you don't have clarity, that shuts you down. And if you're shut down, you're not going to be prosperous, right? So I would say clarity for you is probably more important, because that's something that you need. You need to have clarity. You need to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And kind of talking through it is helpful, I think. Great dialogue. Anybody else want to talk through one of theirs? You're getting it? All right.
I do. Okay.
Go ahead,
I do
Maggie.
have.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, I'm struggling between like creativity and clarity. Like, it's the same thing. Not that they're the same thing, but the same issue that Heather was just talking about. Like, creativity, without it, I don't know, it's needed.
This is how I look at it. Yeah, so are you comparing creativity against clarity?
Yeah.
Okay. So creativity for me is being able to create, think, build with your hands, think for yourself. Clarity is knowing what to work on.
Right.
So, and knowing why you're working. For one of the things that's very important for you, Maggie, is not necessarily it is important for you to know what to work on, but I think it's more important for you to know why you're working on it. That's very important for you, because if you don't understand how what you're doing fits into big picture, you won't do it. You just won't do it. So it's very important. Like Amanda's like, all right. So you need to know the why. So I think clarity is very, very important to you. But also you have so many ideas. Creativity is super. So those two are both very important to you. But you got to figure out, and when you combine them together, which one motivates you more. It doesn't mean that if you choose clarity over creativity, then you're not going to have any creativity in your life. Creativity is still going to be one of your top ones, I'm sure. But you got to figure out which one is the most important one. And it came down to it. What motivates you more to take action? Is it having clarity about what you're doing and why you're doing it? Or are you more motivated by just expressing your creative ideas?
Yeah, I think the clarity is more important to me.
I think it is too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. All right. I'm going to keep going down through my list. If anybody got something, just chime in. Let's see. All right. Prosperity versus creativity.
Is anybody else changing them as they go? Because I'm
Yeah. Oh,
changing
yeah.
even what I
It'll
chose.
happen. Yep. It'll
Okay.
totally happen. Yep. It'll happen. You might get out, and the more you learn about the dialogue behind it, then you're like, I think I need to take that one off the list completely, and that's totally cool. Totally cool. Nothing
Okay.
wrong with it. Prosperity or creativity.
What I'm always amazed at every single time I do this, is my third time to do this, is that the things that I thought was important might be in my top 10, but they're
Yep.
like number 10 on my top 10.
Yep. Same with me. Like, I think the first time I ever did this, one of the first things I circled was fun. I'm like, I'm fun. I want to have fun. Like, everything I do, I try to interject fun into it. But then when you really go down through what really motivates you, there was nothing on my list that fun was more important than. I'm like, yeah, I like to have fun, but that's not a core motivator. Excitement's the same. I did it again today. I circled excitement, but there's nothing on this list that excitement's more important. It's not important than prosperity or any of these other things. So it's funny, you think something's your motivator, but that's why this process is so powerful, because a lot of times what we think motivates us is not what motivates us at all. We got to figure that core out.
I just turned my fan on. Is that a noise? Can anybody hear that? Okay,
No.
great.
You're good. Prosperity versus influence. As you go down through these, if you're like me, you're probably going to find that you get to some of these, you'd be like, all right, how did I answer this on the other one? Do you do that where you have to kind of go back to how you answered it the
Yeah,
first time?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you'd make sure that you get the right combination, because otherwise, if you choose wrong, then your numbers aren't going to work out in the end. So you want to make sure that you get that right balance. It's funny how a simple shift of words makes you look at it again. You're like, is that more important? I'm not sure. Hmm. The other thing I'll say as you go through this too is try not to let other people's expectations of you come into this process. I have that in a couple areas where I'm like, my family would want that to be more important to me, or I feel like that probably should be more. Don't try to let external perspectives come into what you think you should choose, or who thinks this should be more important to you. It's about you. It's about who you are at your core. this is what motivates me. This is what's most important to me. No right or wrong answers, but try not to let other people's opinions come into this process.
Hi, Justin.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, for the motivator fun, I have crosses right across. Does that
That's
mean I need to examine?
Nope, that's totally fine. It's total. I actually have one as well. That's X's all the way across. Excitement for me has X's all the way across. That's normal. And usually most people will find one of those, and that's totally normal. And it's actually very enlightening. It should be enlightening to you, because when you go through this list, that fun might be something that you think is really, really important to you. But then when you really get down to the guts of it, you find out that while you enjoy having fun, that's not a motivator for you. So you don't have to try to make fun a part of your daily routine and schedule, because while you might enjoy having fun, you're not motivated by fun. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. So nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Very common
Okay.
to have one of those. Yep.
I feel like I'm examining my character, because the two things that I think people might think of me when they see me is creativity and peace and ease, because, the chronic, pain issues that I have, you would think that that's what you would think of me. And those are my two lowest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
although I think that, like I said, once again, they're in my top 10, I think they're in the bottom 20.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a few of those too. When I go through this list, a part of what's challenging for me is making sure that I'm selecting the things that fuel me, not how people see me. Because there's a lot of things on this list that people view me and think of me in a certain way. And I'm glad you think of me in that way, but that's not necessarily who I'm necessarily trying to force myself out there to be. It's just reputation and integrity and character and consistency and all those things are important, but those don't motivate me. So again, that's why I say try not to let other people's perspectives come into your process. Is anybody done with this with the whole thing? You are, Tammy? So yeah, I'm still working through mine as well. So once I got a few left on mine that I'm working through, but once you get done with it, basically what you're going to do is each column, you're going to add up just the check marks. So however many check marks you had, and then you're going to write the total number of check marks in this last column. So this last column should have numbers, and it's just the check marks that you put in with each list. All right. So you can go ahead, if you're done, you can add up your check marks. Not counting X's, just check marks. How's everybody doing? Getting there?
I'm done.
You got your numbers listed out, Tammy? So once you got all, you should have a list of numbers. What's your number one? What has the highest number?
Integrity and character.
Got a 9.
hmm
Mm-hmm. And what's
And then
number
my next one is a 7, and it's excellence. And my next one is accountability. That's totally me.
Yeah, that's you. So your second one had a 7.
Yeah, I'm going back and checking. I found 2 mistakes in the check X comparison.
So I'm curious. So your second one was, what was it? Integrity?
Excellence.
No, excellence was, and it had 7. So go across your excellence line. What 2 things did you put an X on when you compared excellence to 2 things? One of them would have been integrity, character. What was the other one?
Making a difference.
Oh.
Yeah,
How many did making a difference have overall?
5. So is that where my mistake is?
Not necessarily. It's just interesting how that played out for you. But regardless, it's still got a 7, so it's still high. Amanda, you done? I'm intrigued by Amanda since it's your first time doing it. What did yours look like? What's number 1?
Flexibility had 9.
That was a 9. What was number 2?
And then choices and options and personal growth both had 7.
Okay, that's normal. That happens. So all right. So personal. So I'm sorry. Say the 2 again. What were they?
The choices / options
Choices
and personal growth.
and personal growth. Both of them are 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that feel right to you?
I definitely like the whole flexibility and choices and options thing. Like,
Yeah.
I see them differently, but those are my, like,
Yeah.
we know this. I have a problem with schedule.
We know this. Yeah, we know this.
So that makes sense because I'm not motivated by structure. I'm motivated by I can do whatever I want whenever I want.
Yep.
Personal growth, I was a little surprised by, but at the same time, I think there's part of that of like without personal growth, like it is the forerunner to anything else. And like I know that I can't level up in whatever other area unless I've grown to do that. So I do see that definitely it's a motivator of like, am I growing?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I see that. I see that in you. It's important to know that you're progressing and growing and moving forward and learning. Yeah. I think it's really, that's good. All right. So those of you guys that are done, the very last page, you'll see that there's a spot here where you can list out your top 3 positive values. So you'll see that it goes number 1 positive, number 1 negative, number 2 positive, number 2 negative, number 3 positive. Actually, I think I list negative twice. That it should say, that's a mistype on this thing. So it should say number 1 positive, number 1 negative, number 2 positive, number 2 negative, number 3 positive, number 3 negative. So whatever your top 3 are, those should be listed in those 3 boxes, and you can just write those on there. Anybody else done and want to share what your top 3 are? I'm curious. Heather, are you done? What was your number 1?
Clarity.
Yeah.
'Cause I know without it, nothing happens.
Yep.
Absolutely
That's
nothing
you.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is friends and togetherness.
Mm-hmm. How many did you have on that one? 8 or 7?
8.
8. That's good. Okay.
Yeah. And then peace and ease.
Ooh. What was that? 7? 6?
A 6.
That's 6. Peace and ease.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's very you. You feel like that's right on? I feel like that's right on for you.
It is. Yeah.
Cool. Jacqueline, are you done? You want to share yours? You have to unmute yourself. There you go. What was your number 1?
In terms of check marks,
Yeah. So your number. Which one did you have the most checks on?
I had integrity with a 9,
Okay.
followed by justice and fairness with 5.
Okay. Interesting.
Number 3 was short-term goals with 3.
Okay. That feels like you. Do you feel like that's accurate? Do you feel
Yes,
like
that's me.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
I
not
think that's-
compromising.
yeah, I think that's you. Yeah. Keith Jowers, are you done, buddy?
Yes.
What was your number one? I could probably guess them just by shooting them out in the air, but I'm curious. Tell me what number one was.
Well, actually, with these numbers, I think I need to go to Vegas because I've hit 777.
Oh, interesting. All right. So what was the first? Well, I guess what was one of your sevens?
You take a guess.
Legacy.
That's right.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, legacy, making a difference. Is that in there?
Legacy, freedom, and peace.
Legacy, freedom, and peace.
I don't
And
know.
they're all sevens.
Yeah, isn't that that's weird.
All right, so let's talk through those a second. So go to your legacy line. What 2 X's do you have in your legacy line? Freedom and peace?
I have actually, hold on, let's see, 1, 2. That's the third one down, right? Okay. So the 2 X's is creativity and, wait a minute now. Hold on a minute.
You know, what I'm guessing, I mean, it's possible you could have 3 sevens. So basically, if it was legacy, freedom, and peace, then on legacy,
Okay.
I don't know. Is that possible?
Yeah, here it is. 1, 2, 3. All right, so it's creativity and financial stability. And is that right?
It's possible. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking at it wrong. I didn't print it out. I wrote it out, but I apologize.
No, you're okay. I think those 3 things probably are your 3. You just want to make sure that you answered correctly as you work through them.
X's were creativity and peace, which is weird, right?
Uh-huh.
Peace is one of mine.
Uh-huh.
But no,
So you said creativity was more important to you than legacy. You think that's true?
well, because I think the more creative I am in helping people build that legacy, right? That's the way I was thinking.
What motivates you day in, day out, though? Is it the knowing that you are creating a legacy for yourself and for other people, or is it having the ability to be creative?
Probably having to be able to be creative, because
I'm surprised by that answer. Tammy is
I am too. I am too.
No, but that's good. I'm glad you answered, because I think all of us would think that, man, Keith is motivated by creating a legacy. But I think it's important for you. I think that goes right along with the flexibility. You don't like to be put in a box. You like to be able to be creative and to be thinking and doing new things. And that's why, building your studio was such a big deal for you this year, and working in your garden was such a big deal for you this year. Writing books is so important for you because that's your ability to express your creativity. And if you don't have things that you can be creative with, that suffocates you.
yes.
Yes, all of that. But that's so good though. That's like such an enlightening thing. And it's a great example of what Tammy was talking about, where the way we see you, we're like, man, Keith really is all about building legacy, which you are, but that's not as much of a motivator for you as being creative. So yeah, you learn some things about yourself in this process. All right, we're gonna keep going, y'all, because we've been an hour in so far. So once you get through this, and again, you might need to take some time and revisit this, look through it, make sure the things that you put down are the right things. But once you figure out your top, basically this is what it looks like. I've got all my numbers down here. So my number 1 is freedom. Number 2 is influence, and number 3 is seeing others win. Those are my top 3 motivators, which that's me. That's who I am. So basically I have my list of numbers down here at the side, and then I just mark my 1, my 2, and my 3. And then I'll take those 3 and I'll list those 3 things here in these boxes. So I have these on my final sheet. So that's the step for that. So we can set positive motivators aside. We're done with those for now. And now we're going to go to negative impactors. Now for me, when I do this negative, so we're on page number 3, negative impactors. When I go through negative impactors, for me, this is easier than motivators. I'm able to see these more clearly. Some people, they find this harder. So it'll be interesting to see how you do. But it's the same process. We're going to choose 10 things. And the way I want you to look at these is I want you to look at these as things like, if this happens, it really sucks the wind out of my sails, and it really demotivates. My number one, I know it's manipulation. Manipulation is a massive trigger for me. If I feel like anybody is manipulating me in any way, that will suck the wind out of my sails immediately. This
Can you
this
say
is
that in a different way rather than taking the power away from you, sucking the wind out of your sails? Because I want
basically,
to say repel. Is that
yeah. So basically, these are the things that will stop you in your tracks.
okay?
Like, it's a wall. It's like, if this happens, it's like a wall that drops down in front of you. So to give you, so I'll tell you my 10. So rejection, that's a tremendous demotivator for me. So if I put my heart and soul into something and I put it out there and it's not well received, that affects me negatively.
Okay.
So something that I put out there that's rejected, that stops me in my tracks. Lack of communication will tremendously demotivate me. It really drives me crazy. If I try communicating and I don't get communication back, that will stop me. Embarrassment will stop me. Criticism for things that I'm trying to do will stop me. Pessimism, negativity just annoys me in general. So anytime, and so you kind of look at these in different ways. So for me, I look at pessimism and negativity as if I am interacting with someone that is tremendously pessimistic or negative, it causes me to pull back from them. And I don't want to, it drops a wall between me and that person. If that person is notoriously negative or pessimistic, I tend to just pull away from them. So I know that about myself. Manipulation, we talked about. Withdrawal is a negative motivator. So if I'm interacting with someone that I feel like is pulling away from me, I hate feeling like I'm chasing someone. And so if someone I feel like they're going away from me, that makes me go the other direction because I don't want to chase you if you're going the wrong way. Poverty, lack is one of the things that I chose because I cannot stand a poverty or a lack mentality. That really drives me crazy. Anybody that just carries that on them, that has that energy or has that mindset or has that constant thought process, I tend to pull back from people that are like that. And then ungratefulness is huge for me. If I deal with people that are ungrateful, that's a massive demotivator. My kids too. My kids know that the quickest way to get dad to take everything in my life away from me is I demonstrate that I'm ungrateful for what I have. So ungratefulness is a big one. So those are my 10. So go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly because I'm having a hard time following. Okay, so basically it's either whether it's in myself or someone else, when I come across this thing, it just totally demotivates me and makes me not want to do whatever.
Yes, it's basically it's an experience that you have. If I experience rejection, shuts me down. If I experience embarrassment, that'll shut me down. It'll cause me to withdraw. If I experience manipulation or ungratefulness, it makes me want to stop whatever I'm doing. So basically, if you imagine, if you go off of this first list where you're motivated, I'm making an influence. I'm growing, I'm creating, I'm doing things I want to do. What on this list will stop me? What will, if I'm finding myself motivated, what will stop me in my tracks if I have any of these experiences? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And are we doing this mostly for business, or are we trying to do this for our whole lives? Because I feel like I'm doing it with the mindset of my business, but because my whole life probably would look totally different.
Yep. Your life. And some of these will apply in different ways. So for me, lack of communication, that triggers my business mind a bit. Manipulation, ungratefulness tends to trigger my kids, my ex-wife, things like that, personal life stuff. So it can kind of both go away. Some of these you might find that really affects me in my business mind. Some of these affect me in my personal, and that's totally fine. It's just, these are the things of all of these things. These are the things that really just suck the wind out of my sails.
Okay. I'm going to have to redo the first part later then.
And it's told that's fine.
'Cause I totally
This
did
is
this
a
with
learning
business-
experience.
Business in mind specifically.
Yeah, it's very much a learning experience, and I think when we did this in Nashville last year, everybody kind of worked through the first round, and then everybody, I think I gave like 3 copies of this paperwork to everybody, because then everybody went back to their rooms and did another round of it. So you'll learn as you go through it. So go through, same process. You're going to go through and you're going to outline 10 things that are negative impactors to you. And I'll give you a second to go ahead and choose those 10 things. Go ahead, Keith.
You don't have a brain teaser sheet like you did the first one, right?
Yes, I do. This sheet. Yes, should be page number 3. Do you have this paperwork?
I don't have it here.
If you go to on your computer, Keith, go to bit.ly/core motivation doc. bit.ly/core motivation doc, and that'll take you to the printout, and you can print that thing out.
Okay.
And same with this one, y'all. You got some lines on the bottom, so if there's anything that you find is a tremendous demotivator for you or a negative impactor for you, but it's not necessarily on the list, you can add your own in there if you want to. Did that link work for you, Keith?
I'm working it.
Okay.
What if you have a lot of them?
A lot of negative impactors.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at these. I'm like, I can circle several.
Top ones. That's all I can really say, Maggie. Just try to go with I think we all have annoyances and frustrations, but you want to say, what are the biggest ones that really, really irk me? Like when I look at this list, manipulation and ungratefulness jump straight off the page to me. Man, I could circle those 10 times and I could say, you know what, those 2 just really, really drive me crazy. So what are the ones that really bug you? And then what are the ones that it's just like your first list, the positive ones. You're going to have some that are some kind of motivate you, but not significantly some others. Then you're going to have some others that are going to be big for you. I know it probably doesn't make it any easier, Maggie, but that's my answer.
You know, one of the things that I had difficulty separating last time, but was very easy this time, was the lack of direction and the lack of clarity. People would think that those are the same, but for me, they're completely different. This time, I'm also seeing that same disconnect with uncertainty and unforeseen circumstances. Those sound similar, but for me, they're very different.
They're different. Yeah, those are different to me as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kat, how are you doing over there, girl? I haven't heard much out of you. You getting through this process all right?
She was quiet last time too.
Yeah, I remember. It's very thought-provoking.
I don't know if you heard me. I said I am.
You are. You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
checking
like I said, I'm working this one as a more in life in general,
It's good.
because right now, as you know where I'm at,
Yep.
I
That's
need
good.
to get that fixed first.
Yep.
And then move to business.
Yep. That's good.
I have a
Tammy?
question. As I'm looking through here, one of the things that goes through my head is lack of knowledge, not having all the information. Is that on here? And is that, or do I need to add that? What does that sound? What is the word for that?
So I got lack of vision, lack of direction,
Not having all the
Confusion.
facts will stop me.
confusion could be, but if you label it whatever you want to label it, buddy. So even if I have one that's similar, name that thing whatever speaks to you most directly. So
Yeah,
call it
okay.
whatever you want. Even if I have something on here that's similar, but it doesn't quite ring with one of you.
Yeah, confusion and overwhelm sounds similar, but that's not what I mean.
No,
I mean,
name it-
if
name
I
it
don't
whatever-
have enough facts, that will stop me in my tracks. That's
Yep.
why I'm a researcher and a learner by heart,
Yep.
by motivation. That motivates me. But
Yep.
not having all the facts, that'll stop me.
Yep. Good. Anybody got their top 10 selected?
I do.
Maggie, tell me yours.
So rejection, self-doubt, embarrassment, criticism, I put in misunderstanding as a written in one.
Good.
Pessimism and negativity, manipulation, lack of clarity, ungratefulness, and overwhelm.
That's a good list. That's a real good list. That's very you, I think. Did you have any that you, what were the ones that you were really wanting to add, but you didn't? Or
Well, uncertainty, I think, was a really good one, but that's lack of clarity, I figured.
Yep.
So it was the
Yep,
same.
similar. Yep.
And then closed doors actually are pretty high on the list. I think I might even swap out ungratefulness. It might annoy me, but I can just give grace. It's usually from other people. So I'm pretty, if it has to do with other people, it's easy for me to overlook. But things in my personal life that affect me are those the thoughts about myself that stop me more than anything.
Yeah.
Maggie, that is brilliant. That is a really great perception there, because that's what I saw when I looked at mine, is that compared to the ones that Justin listed, Justin, most of the things that you listed were things that happened to you, whereas me, it's the lack of. My things are rejection, which actually happens to me, but it can also be a feeling that I put on myself.
Yep.
Okay. But depression, not having enough information, anger, whether that's somebody else's anger or something that if something is very rarely, but if something makes me angry, I can just stop everything. Lack of direction, mind block, discomfort, uncertainty, lack of clarity, and exhaustion. See, all of those are things, those aren't things that are done to me, they're things that are happening inside me.
And it's a great,
that is so insightful.
It's very insightful. Absolutely it is. And that's just how every one of us are wired differently. Amanda, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at this, and where I'm struggling right now, I'm trying to find my last two. And part of it is that, like, for example, I've identified that rejection has been a huge demotivator for me, but I've identified that, and I've been actively working to not care, right, and not let it affect me. And so I'm I don't know if I select that because it has been a problem in the past, but it's becoming less of a problem because I'm actively working on my mindset around that idea, and either just not caring.
This is what I'll tell you. It's a great question. I have this one similarly with embarrassment and criticism. I don't really experience much embarrassment or criticism in my world, but I have in the past. And I know from past situations that things that are embarrassing to me or things where I experience criticism can really affect me and really affect my spirit. So I put those on there because I know they affect me. And I think what I've done over the years, especially since running my own business, is knowing that those things, knowing that how impactful those things are to me, I'm aware of them, and I make sure that I protect myself from being in positions that can be embarrassing or putting myself in positions to receive criticism. And so same with you, you're learning that about yourself where those things maybe I'm working through that, I'm learning not to care, but knowing that still bugs you, if you recognize it as a core negative impactor, then you can just be aware that, you know what, I really hate being in that position. And so it kind of helps you protect yourself from being in those kind of positions. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of cases when you're saying, well, I'm just learning to ignore it or learning not to care, in some cases that can simply just be suppressing an emotion where at your core it may really bother you.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So that's important. It's important. If it's something that's bothered you your whole life, it's probably not going to stop bothering you now. All you're doing is maturing and learning how to silence the noise in your head. Doesn't mean that it doesn't bother you. Doesn't mean it doesn't bother you. It just means that you're just suppressing it and trying to not let it bother you as much. But it still does bother you at your core. So if it bothers you, I would definitely still list it. Absolutely.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Yep. Jackie, you were unmuted. Jackie, you need to unmute yourself.
Unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, some of these negative impactors for me are positive motivators, like
That's possible.
disappointment, failure. They work on me in the opposite way.
Yep. Yep. That's very, very normal. Oftentimes that's the case. Good.
Right.
Anybody
So
else?
that's why I haven't included some of them.
Yep. That's good. That's very good. Amanda's done. Okay. Heather, are you done? You're still going.
I'm having a hard time because a lot doesn't bother me.
Yeah, you're
really
that
good
way.
at just like whatever.
You're that way. Yeah. And you know what? And I haven't had too many people like that, but you're one of them. If you're finding it hard, you'd be like, you know what? There's just a lot of stuff that doesn't really bug me. You can narrow 10 down to like 5. You know?
Okay, because that's what I'm at right now, and I know
you can really follow. Go ahead.
Disruptions, clarity, and overwhelm. I'm gonna guess are gonna be my top 3 because those are the ones that I went to first.
That's good.
And then the rest are like, this kind of fits me a little bit, but not really.
Once you know the process, like if you like you, I think you can look through this and you can see these are my 3. I know these are my 3. I don't need to do the comparisons to figure it out. Or if you're like, I got maybe 5, you can do the same process. You can just pick 5 and do 5 and 5 and then compare them all until you sort down your top 3. But you know yourself well enough, and you've done this before, so I think you can see them.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's cool.
Okay.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that. Keith? Oh, Amanda, go ahead.
I just had a question. So kind of along the lines of what like Jackie was saying, and because like after what you said about the, like, if you know it's bugged you in the past, that was helpful, because one thing I've identified is like, for me, anger in someone else, like at me, is a demotivator. Yep. But if I'm angry, it's a motivator.
That's so good to know about yourself.
It's really funny.
Jamie's like light bulb moment.
Well, because I'm thinking
mad about something.
Because I came from 2 abusive relationships, if somebody is angry in my world, in the room, on a video, anything, or if I see that somebody's emotion is raising and their voice is getting loud, I shut down, I walk away, I turn it off. I cannot. In fact, even if Steve and I are having a serious discussion, and in his passion to try to get his point across, he raises his voice, I will try to stop him, and then I will say, I'm not going to argue with you. And he always, I can assure you, like the back of my hand, he's going to say, we are not arguing. And I'm like, okay, I don't have the words to explain to you, but if you're going to come at me with really a lot of passion and really loudness, I shut down. So I can't receive what he's saying, even if we're not arguing. You're being too passionate right now. That's what I should say. You're being too passionate right now.
Yeah. No, that's a great distinction, Amanda, between, someone being expressing what feels like anger, because in some cases it may not be anger, but it may feel like anger. When someone expresses anger to you, that shuts you down. But when you get angry at yourself, that motivates you. That's great. That's a great way to, and you might need to designate that. Be like, you can even say, list it as external anger versus internal anger.
Yeah. Well, and I know for me, if I'm even mad at myself, that's demotivating, because it goes into that self-condemnation thing, which doesn't work. But if I'm mad about something external, like for example, honestly, like one of the drives behind even my core, like who my audience is and all that, is I'm angry that people are stuck in bondage. It makes me mad. Yeah. So, and I want to bring
passionate about that.
People free. Yeah. So like that motivates me, but any other kind of anger doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta designate it so you know which one is the negative, and just list it however you want to list it. And going back to Tammy too, I love Tammy's perspective of, my negative impactors are things that kind of happen to me, and then yours are more things that happen within you, and that's just who you are. And that's totally fine. Like, I don't struggle with things like lack of clarity and depression, and that's just stuff I've never ever had to deal with. So more of the things that shut me down, and really I think probably when it comes to me at my core, is naturally I like to be in control. I've always been in leadership positions. I like control. I feel like I'm the leader of my family. I'm the leader of my finances. I like to be in control. So the things that negatively impact me the most are things that are outside my control. And that bugs me, really, really bugs me. All right, Heather. So you might list that, Heather, not having control. That could be a negative impactor for you. So it's an interesting distinction that majority of yours, Tammy, are internal, and all of mine are external. It's all what other people do to me, or experiences that may happen to me, not necessarily within me. That's interesting. Keith, what are yours, buddy? Can you mind sharing?
The whole sheet? No.
The whole sheet? It all demotivates you? This process demotivates me. Give me a couple. What's a couple of them? What are some of the main ones for you?
I actually added 12, but probably it's just what our world's going through right now, especially our country, is just ungratefulness and disrespect, all around, not appreciating what you have.
Yep.
But the probably pressure and overwhelm really come to mind,
Yeah.
You have a whole agenda planned or whatever, and then all of a sudden everything else that kind of hits you from the left and right, that really
I think unforeseen circumstances might be on your list as well. Did you circle that one?
Yeah, it's just so many things that can come at any of us at any time, and the enemy loves to just kind of gets us all mixed up from time to time, and it really kind of pisses some of us off. It does me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's negative. But pressure and confusion, sometimes when it hits you all at once, you don't know what to do, but you just have to do what you feel like is best and keep going.
Yep. Good. All right. So what you're going to do, same process. You're going to go to your mapping of your negative motivators list. Same thing. Take all 10 things and list those down here and down here. And really the only difference with this process is with each of these, when you're comparing them to each other, you're going to ask yourself, which of these impacts me more? So for me, when I look at rejection, if rejection is my top line, does rejection affect me more than lack of communication? Or does lack of communication affect me more than rejection? For me, it would be lack of communication affects me more. Does criticism affect me more than procrastination? Or does manipulation affect me more than ungratefulness? Those are two that are really tough for me. So you're basically just asking yourself and just picturing with each one of you, each one of these really need to just put yourself in a position of experiencing one of those things that you've selected, and ask yourself, does that affect me more than this one, or does this one affect me more than that one? And you're really just trying to determine which of these really have the greatest negative impact on you. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm not going to sit with you all as you go through this, because I think you get the process now. Yeah. Does everybody understand what you're working towards and how you map these things out? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So you're going to work through these negative impactors. Same process, list your 10 down the side and across the top, compare them against the other, and you should end up with a list, again, just like this, where you should have checks and X's. You add up your checks and X's, and you should get your final column down here at the left, where you're trying to determine basically your top 3 negative impactors. What 3 things negatively impact you the most? My top 3 are manipulation, ungratefulness, and pessimism, negativity. Those are my top 3. Those things affect me the most among anything else. So once you pick out those top 3, again, you're going to go through and you're going to list on this last sheet your number 1 positive, number 1 negative, number 2 positive, number 2 negative, number 3 positive, number 3 negative. And then you have a spot on here just to put your thoughts about that. So that's just for you. What I encourage you to do is once you identify your top 3 positive and your top 3 negative, what I encourage you to do is just write some thoughts about why you think that is. And it may stem from your past. It may stem from experiences that you have. It may just stem from just how you're wired as a person. But try to put thoughts about why you think that is a positive or why you think that is such a negative for you. And then conclusions. What you want to put on the conclusions piece is basically, what do I need to do with this enlightenment? like, what do I need to do to make, is there anything that I need to communicate with anyone? Like when we're talking about Keith, flexibility and freedom is important, where he thought maybe routine was something that was a positive. It was actually the opposite. So a thought and conclusion, and from that perspective, might be, you know what, I need to sit and share this with Glenda and show her what I came through, and let her know that something that's super important to me is creativity and flexibility. And we may just talk about our daily or our weekly schedule and figure out a plan for how I can interject some more creativity and flexibility into our schedule on a weekly basis. Whatever that is, your conclusion is basically, what do you need to do differently, if anything, to make sure that you are leveraging your positive motivators as best as possible, and then protecting yourself as best as possible from the things that affect you negatively? In some cases, that just may be a simple change in your routine. In some cases, it may be a conversation that needs to be had with a loved one. Whatever that case may be, your conclusion should be something that you need to do because of that identification. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you want to, when you get this sheet filled out, you can share it with me. You can email it to me, or just type up your thoughts. Justin, these are my top 3. These are my thoughts. These are my conclusions. If you want to send that to me, I'll review it and we can talk about it. If you want to have me give you some insight on it, or if you just want to keep it for yourself, totally up to you. But that's your homework. So I'm going to leave you with that, guys, because we've already been on here for 90 minutes. Let you work through those. You guys get the process. Any questions for me before I let you go?
What
Good.
do we do with the ultimate results? That's our epiphany.
It's just clarity for you. It's basically, this is where I'm at in the season. These are my motivators. These are my negative impactors. This is why I believe these are these, and these are my conclusions. This is what I need to do about it. And so it's really just helping everybody get crystal clear on, this is what motivates me in this season. This is what demotivates me in this season. And what do I need to do to make sure I'm leveraging my positives and protecting myself from my negatives? And any changes that you need to make in your routine, your schedule, your communication, make sure that you're leveraging the positive as much as possible and protecting yourself from the negative factors as much as possible. Okay. Y'all are awesome. I recorded this, so I'll upload it to the Facebook group and to the app as soon as it finishes downloading. Y'all are good. Thank you for joining me live this morning. I love the live because the live is just as more impactful. Have a great weekend. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And I'll see you guys around the web. All right. Take care and God bless, guys. Bye-bye.